Now, if Jesus is divine, why does he say in John 17 verse 3 that the Father is the only true God?
Good. According to Orthodox Christian understanding of God,
Okay.
God is one. And when the Bible says God is one, the oneness of God is not one the way I and you are one.
Okay. Explain.
The Bible says in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4, Shema Israel, Adonai Elohinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Jehovah our God, Jehovah is what? One. The Hebrew word that was used for one is Echad. There are two Hebrew words for one. One is Yakid, that is a numerical one, and the other is Echad, that is composite one. So one mistake Muslims and most Christian cults make is that they read the Bible and transport human understanding, the way we human beings assess things, into the Bible. Any language the Bible uses for God is anthropomorphic. When we say anthropomorphic, using human expression to describe a deity, God is beyond human understanding.
Thank you.
So the Quran says in Surah Al-Ikhlas, Kul huwallahu ahad. Okay, say he's Allah the one. I am one, Zach is one. I'm from Ablekuma. Right now I'm not in Ablekuma. God is one, but we say God is here, God is in Ablekuma. So the idea is that when the Bible says God is one, it is wrong for you to assume that the oneness of God means God is singular.
Okay.
God, when you read the Bible, you say God is a multi-personal being. So the one God of the Bible, according to the whole teaching of the Bible, consists of Father, Son, and the Spirit. So God is one in terms of his essence, in terms of his being, in terms of his nature, but three in terms of his what? In terms of his personality, Father, Son, and the Spirit. That is why you read Genesis chapter 1, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et harat. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the Hebrew word for God over there is Elohim. It's not El, which is singular. It is plural, which is Elohim. Then Genesis 1:20 says, God said, let us make man in our own image. Let us make man in our own image. The Muslims will say that is plural of majesty, but it's false. In Hebrew, in ancient Near East, a monarch or a king doesn't address himself in that sense. But verse 27 says God created man in his own image. So the God that created man is not a unipersonal God. The God that created man is a multi-personal being, which in the New Testament we are told they are Father, Son, and the Spirit. Now back to the question: why did Jesus call God, call the Father as the only true God? The reason is that each of the members of the Trinity can refer to the other as God. Jesus in John 17 called the Father God. Then when we go to Hebrews chapter 1, in Hebrews chapter 1, the Father also called the Son God. So the Father can call the Son God, and the Son can also call the Father God. So that in no way negates Jesus being divine or God. Because Hebrews chapter 1 verse, let me read that text. Hebrews chapter 1, where the Father calls the Son as what? God. The way the Son also calls the Father as what? God. That's Hebrews chapter 1, verse number 8. But to the Son he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is a scepter of your kingdom. You've loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness more than your companions. So God, in addressing the Son, Jesus says, but to the Son he says, that's the Father speaking, your throne, O God. So the Father refers to the Son as God over here, just as the Son also refers to the Father as God in John 17 verse what? 3. So the Father can call the Son as God, the Son can also call the Father as what? God. So John 17 verse 3 in no way negates Jesus being God, because already in John chapter 1, and that's the challenge I'll give to my brother, any text that he read from John, he has to read it, he has to interpret that in light of John chapter 1. Because before John will say everything, John has told us in John chapter 1 verse 1 that Enarchy and Hologos. In the beginning was the Word, and Hologos, Enarchy and Hologos. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the word was God, kai theos and hologos. So John has intimated to us right from the prologue of his gospel that the word was God, kai theos and hologos. Then verse 17 says, kai hologos saus egeneto, the word became flesh. So any text Muslims who quote from John should be interpreted in light of this prologue of John. So when you quote John 14:20, Jesus said, the Father is greater than me. John 5:30, I can of my own self do nothing. You have to read that in light of that. Because the word became flesh, the word has to live as human. So Jesus calling the Father as God does not mean he is not part of the one God of the Bible. That's my answer to your question.
Thank you. Great submission. The very next one before I move on to my next debater. Now, why do Christians insist Jesus is God when he frequently prayed to God?
I think I've answered you with mine. I've already answered you with mine.
One.
But let me
give us a rephrase of it.
Yeah, let me reshape it.
Shape it for us.
Once you understand the incarnation, Kai hologos saus egeneto, the word became flesh.
Okay.
That statement is loaded. The word who was God in verse 1, kai theos and hologos, that word that was God in verse 1 of John, that word became flesh. How would we know that Jesus has become human? The word who was God has become human. He has to live as human.
Okay.
Just as humans pray to God, he also has to pray to God. Just as humans die, he also has to die. Just as humans hunger, they drink, they become weak, they are tempted. Jesus has to pass through all these things, because Philippians 2:6, Paul says that hos animal faith, he was in the form of God. Speaking of Jesus, Paul says he was in the form of God, but he humbled himself. He atoned a kenosen. Jesus humbled himself and became like man. So even though God is not supposed to pray, God is not supposed to die, God is not supposed to be tempted, God cannot sleep. The way
Yeah.
But Jesus went through all these ordeals to demonstrate that he has become like one of us. So Jesus praying in Matthew 26:39 does not negate his divinity. It rather proves his humanity, because he's fully God, then fully human. Because already John has told us that he became flesh. That word that was God has become flesh. That's why I've asked my Muslims that any text that they quote,
today there's
any text that they quote in John, most of the passages that they will use to say Jesus is not God will come from John. Must be interpreted in light of the prologue.
Today,
because we have something called Quranic exegesis. We have to do Quranic exegesis. You have to look at the text, the literary context known as siyak.
Exactly.
Siyak al-ayah, siyak al-surah. You have to look at the asbab al-nuzul. You need to look at the occasion of the revelation. You have to check whether the text is a muham text or mutashabi, or the text is am or has. You have to check all this before you arrive at a correct interpretation of the Quran. But it's so sad when they are reading the Bible, they don't apply the same principle.
Not at all.
So
that's why you are here today, dear. My Christians, you read Bible as if you are doing you are playing chess. You see, read it in depthly, get the books, and find out how the verses came about. Oh dear, today we are not here for this. Let me ask my very last one, and then you see, today, Pastor, I'm on you, because I want you to answer some questions for me. These are very critical, deep questions that we Christians need to understand. Now, this is the very final one, then I move on to the next. Did Jesus ever directly say the words, "I am God, worship me"?
Okay, that's a very good question. The question Muslims exactly. There's nowhere in the Bible Jesus said, "I am God, worship me." Ahmed did that. I had the opportunity to ask him a question 2014 at the Ewak Stadium. Yeah.
Okay.
Straightforward. Jesus in nowhere in the New Testament in that exact verse ever said, "I am God." But worship that does not mean he's not God.
Okay.
If we can apply the same standard to the Quran or to my Muslim, and
people.
they cannot answer.
Yo.
We believe Muslims believe Jesus is the Messiah.
Okay.
I challenge any Muslim to show me one text in the Bible where Jesus said, "I am the Messiah."
Okay.
It's not in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I wish to say Jesus is not the Messiah, as the Quran also supports.
And then the
Quran contains recorded sayings of Jesus. Jesus spoke in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
Muslims believe Jesus is the Kalimatullah, word of Allah. Muslims believe Jesus is the Ruhullah, spirit of Allah. Muslims believe Jesus is the Al-Masih, Jesus is the Messiah. The challenge to Muslims is that where in the Quran did Jesus ever say, "I am the word of Allah, I am the spirit from Allah, I am the Messiah"? There is no place in the Quran that says that. Yet they believe Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus is the spirit from Allah. They believe Jesus is the Messiah. So the fact that Jesus didn't open his mouth in that exact words to say, "I am there,
I am God,"
"I am God," does not mean he's not God. There are so many ways he said he's God. For example, Jesus, according to Surah Al-Hadid, that is Quran chapter 57, verse 3, Allah is the first and the last. Allah is the first and what and the last. You go to the Old Testament, Yahweh also says in Isaiah chapter 44, "Ani Rishon wa Ani Achron." I am the first and the last. I'm the beginning and the end. Jesus in the New Testament, Revelation chapter 1, verse 70, Jesus says, "Ego emi ho protos kai ho eskatos." I am the first and I am the last. So what is Jesus claiming here? So even though he did not open his mouth to say, "I am God" in that exact words, which of course doesn't mean he's not God.
Okay.
But there are so many ways he demonstrated in his sayings that he's God. In fact, no prophet, whether in the Quran, in the Bible, spoke the way Jesus spoke. No prophets. We are not going to use miracles. Any prophet, most of them prophets were granted ability to what? Perform miracles. So I will not say because Jesus did this, that's what. No. But one of the strongest evidence for Jesus being God is from his sayings. He said things only God could say. So for him to say, "I am the first and the last," is a clear-cut evidence that this man is saying that I am God. Believe in God and believe also in me. All the prophets said, "Believe in God, believe in God." But Jesus said, "Believe in God and believe also in me." Wow. This person is claiming deity over here. And philosophically, if you go into the Quran, Jesus can even be proven that he's God. Allah created the world by his word, kun fayakun. The Quran calls Jesus word of Allah. Chapter 4, verse 171, the Quran says Jesus is Allah's word, his word. That word that Allah created the world with, kun fayakun, is that word a creator or a creature?